Hey folks, I just want to give you a quick demo of Chromatic's new modes feature. So here I have my storybook running with this article card component. This card component renders differently based on different global configurations that might be enabled within the application. So for example, we support both a light and a dark theme. So depending on which one is enabled, the UI changes to reflect the colors accordingly. And then based on the viewport sizes, the card kind of expands or collapses and changes the layout accordingly. Now, these types of global configurations are usually things that you don't configure at the component level, that you usually configure them at the global application level. And the way you can control those within Storybook is through add-ons. So in this particular case, I'm using two add-ons, the viewports add-on, and I've configured it with this small, medium, and large breakpoint that I use within my application. And secondly, I'm using this themes add-on, the Storybook add-on themes, which enables me to control which theme is active. Now, in this particular case, the UI is built using Tailwind. So the theme add-on loads up all of Tailwind, and depending on which theme is active, it switches out the variables accordingly. So it switches between light and dark mode. The other things that add-ons do is they end up adding these controls to the Storybook toolbar. So from using these controls, you're able to switch between different values for that particular global configuration that you want to change. And the mechanism within Storybook that allows us to track which value is active is called globals, and that global state is also tracked using the URL. So you can see the globals theme dark value has been enabled here. Similarly, if I have a viewport enabled, that will also be tracked in the URL. All right, so we have these add-ons configured, and that allows us to toggle between different global configuration values for the UI. Now, if I wanted to test these variations in Chromatic, what I would have to do previously is first write stories for my component, and then write variations of those stories that allow us to toggle a particular global configuration. So I'll switch over to the header component here. Now you can see that the header component has this default version, and then similarly there is a dark variant for that logged in story. And the way that works is if you start by writing the logged in story, and then you extend that logged in story, and then using parameters, you're able to control values for those particular add-ons. So in this case, we're setting the theme value to be dark. Now, this works, but it can get a little bit tedious. You end up writing a whole bunch more stories, and then you end up having to maintain a whole bunch more stories for all those variations that you want to test. With modes, we are trying to simplify this process where with just a little bit of configuration, you can set up your storybook to test stories with different variations, where Chromatic will generate those tests for you automatically. So let's see how that works. So again, we've defined viewports and decorators with different values that it can support. So the way we start by configuring modes is by creating this modes.ts file that again lives in your storybook configuration directory. And this modes file can define all the different modes that you want to use within your storybook. And each mode can set the value for one or multiple globals. So in my particular case, I'm writing modes that combine theming and viewport sizes. So we have dark theme going from small, medium, large viewports, and similarly for the light theme. And in each mode, you can see I'm setting the theme global to whatever value I want to enable, and similarly the viewport global to whatever value that I want to enable for that particular mode. Now, when you define a mode, it's totally up to you how you want to name it and which global you want to configure within it. You can configure as little as one global, or you can combine multiple globals together to create more complex combinations. Once you've defined these modes, we can apply them at the project level, or the component level, or the story level. To apply modes at the project level, we switch back to the storybook preview.ts file. And you'll notice that I've set this chromatic parameter here. Chromatic with the modes property being the one that enables which modes you want to apply to your entire project. So in this case, I've applied 4 modes at the project level, the dark large, dark small, light large, and light small modes. There's the way you apply a mode is you import those all the modes that you've defined in that modes.ts file and pick and choose which value you want to enable for a particular mode. Okay, so that's applying modes at the project level. Similarly, I'll switch over to the article card stories file now. We can also apply modes at the component level. So once again, we import all the modes from that .storybook/modes.ts file. And in this case, again, I'm using the chromatic parameter and applying modes at the component level in that default meta object that you export from a CSF file. If you wanted to apply modes at the story level, again, you can just simply apply the parameters object at the story level to do that. But for now, I'm setting 4 modes at the project level, and then these 2 dark medium and light medium modes at the component level. So now when I run a chromatic build, this component has 2 stories, but chromatic is going to generate tests for all the different modes that we've defined for each of these stories. So that should be 6 in total. Now I ran a chromatic build. The build is complete at this point. So let me switch over to the chromatic UI. And you can see this is the build that ran. And these are the 2 article card stories that I just showed you in Storybook. And each of them has snapshots each, one for all the modes that we've applied. So the way modes work is if you define modes at project, component, and story level, Chromatic will actually combine them all into a stack and generate tests for every single mode within that stack. So that's why we see these 6 mode snapshots that have been captured here. And you can see that mode snapshots are 1 level below the story snapshot. So if you just have a story without any modes, you usually just see this blue bookmark sign, but for modes, you see 1 level down. And each of these mode-specific stories has its own baseline and history, so they're not going to be conflicting with each other. And if I jump in to review these modes, you can see the dark large one has the large viewport and the dark theme enabled. And as we go from the small to light small, you can see the light theme got enabled and it's still the small viewport size. And the dark medium, light medium. So these are all the different stories that were, or snapshots that were captured for these stories based on modes. So quick recap, we configure different globals within Storybook using add-ons. So viewports and themes are 2 examples here. Then define a bunch of modes that we want to apply within our Storybook in the storybook/modes.ts file. And then you can apply those modes either globally, again, in the storybook preview.ts file, or at the component and story level by importing those modes into all of those sort of files. And once these modes are applied, Chromatic will auto-generate tests based on all the modes that are applied to a particular story. Yep, that's about it. Thank you.